Hello and welcome to another episode of the Spiritual Sisters podcast. This is Gabrielle Celeste. How's it going, everyone?
Hi, guys. It's my turn to drive today. It's Nichole.
I love it. Yes. I'm excited for this episode. I feel like there's going to be a wealth of information.
I hope so. It took me hours.
Oh my God.
Took me hours to put the notes together because it was just there's so many little bits and pieces. So anyways, we'll just probably jump right in because it's going to be a lot. All right. What are we talking about today, Gabs?
Oh my gosh. The central nervous system?
Well, the nervous system.
Oh, okay. Sorry. The central is one portion of it. Excuse me.
Yeah, it's just one little bitty part of the nervous system.
Okay.
So I had messaged Gabs. I brain dumped on her one day and I sent a bunch of ideas, and I think this was one of them because I've been so fascinated with the nervous system lately and regulating the nervous system, somatic movement, all of those things. And I was like, let's do this.
That's what Nichole does. She was like, hello, here's either a 40-minute conversation, or she just has a quick hit and run list of things to cover. And then she's like, okay, gotta go by. This was one of those, okay, gotta go by moments.
Yeah. All right. We're going to talk about the nervous system. And I think one of the reasons that it's really important to talk about the nervous system is because if you're on a healing journey and you're trying to grow, you cannot hold on to the growth and hold on to the healing if your nervous system is out of whack, if it's dysregulated. If you're calling in money and you get that money, you're not going to be able to hold on to that money. Think about the curse of the lotto winners, right? Their thermostat isn't set to be able to hold on to that money, which is why a lot of them blow their money within the first few years. Or if you're calling in a relationship and, okay, you've called in the relationship, but now you have to keep the relationship. Now you have to sustain the relationship. If your nervous system is dysregulated, you're going to have a really hard time having a stable, healthy relationship. So I think that's why it's really important to talk about it, because I think it kind of gets overlooked in a lot of the healing work and a lot of the discussions that people have. So I want you to think of regulating your nervous system like putting primer on a wall before you start painting. What's the purpose of putting primer on the wall?
Did you come up with that, or was that the internet?
No, this was a course I'm in.
Oh, okay. It's so there's a better adherence of the paint and the application of paint. Mm-hmm.
Basically, yeah. So the paint can stick.
Mm-hmm.
When you regulate your nervous system, it's helping your growth and your healing actually stick so that you can sustain it long term. So a little background, not a little background, but a little intro on the nervous system. Nervous system 101. It plays a role in everything. It helps you move, it helps you think, it helps you feel, and it regulates things that you do but you don't think about. So like digesting your food. Your nervous system is in charge of all that. You're not having to think about it. You just eat your food and go about your day. But the nervous system is taking over and it's digesting and doing what it needs to do and sending the nutrients where it needs to go and getting rid of the waste. And there's 3 main parts of your nervous system. This is where it started getting very sciencey and brainy. So there's your brain. That's one part of your nervous system. And then your spinal cord. And then all of your nerves. And within your nervous system is housed the central nervous system, like you said earlier, and then the peripheral nervous system. So your nervous system just kind of works. It just sends messages. It sends electrical signals throughout your brain to other parts of your body. So your brain is telling your body to breathe. It's telling your body to move. It's telling your body to speak. It's basically giving all the commands to your body for your body to follow whatever it's being told. And it's keeping track of things that are going on inside that we're not even aware of because we can't see what's happening in our body. And then it's also scanning things that are going on outside. So that way your body and your brain kind of know how to respond to situations around you. I want you to think of the nervous system kind of like a security system. A security system is there to do what?
Protect,
Keep us safe. The nervous system's job is to keep us alive. So it's always going to be scanning for threats, trying to decide, okay, do I need a fight? Do I need a flight? Do I need a free? Can I just chill? Like it's just kind of scanning all the time to try to keep you alive. And the nervous system's main function is to send the messages send messages to the various parts of our body from the brain, like I mentioned earlier. So it's going to tell you, it's time to think, it's time to learn. We got to do math right now. We have to balance on this. What do we balance on? A balance beam. You have to balance on this sidewalk. You have to balance all these things that you're holding, like coordination. It's telling you, okay, you know what? I smell smoke right now. Huh. What do we know about smoke? Well, there might be a fire. Do I need to scan for a fire? Do I need to see if we're in danger? It also heals wounds like on our bodies. So we're not thinking about, okay, skin, make my wound heal, make this cut go away, right? Our body and our brain are just kind of taking care of all those things on our own. Sleeping. When we're sleeping, we're still breathing. We're still digesting. Our heart's still beating. So our nervous system's in charge of doing all of those things while we're unconscious, while we're sleeping. It's keeping our heart beating. It's keeping us breathing. And it's also letting us know, like, okay, we're in a stressful situation right now. We need to sweat, for example, because what happens when we sweat? Or like, what's the purpose of sweating?
to release heat from the body.
To release heat, right? Because if we don't release the heat and we overheat, that's not going to be good for us either.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also in charge of things like puberty, which I'm dreading, and aging.
We have 2 years.
Which I'm also dreading.
So basically, it runs the show.
It runs the show. All right, you still with me?
I'm very much with you.
Okay. So now, the nervous system has the central nervous system, like I said earlier. So that's going to be your brain and your spinal cord. Your brain sends the signals to the nerves. It tells you how to think, move, and feel. Your peripheral nervous system is going to be all of the nerves. So you know when you see stuff with all the neurons and the nerves? What?
It's disgusting. Like
I was like, you looked gross out.
I keep thinking about that meme. I don't know if you've seen it on Instagram, but it's like literally like the nervous system laid out and like on top of like a human body shape, like cut out, like the shape of a body. And it's like this nervous system literally, I don't know, runs the show or something to that effect. And I'm just like, yeah, it's literally all it is.
It just looks like a network of highways.
And
oh my gosh, it looks like Boston. Have you ever seen it? Well, you've seen a Boston map, but for those of you who have not seen a Boston map, it is so dumb. It's so interconnected. It just, the most stressful map I've ever seen.
Shout out to Lydia. You know what, though? This last time I was there back in September, I figured that place out and I felt very accomplished.
It was awful. Okay. So then your peripheral nervous system is going to be all of the nerves, so the highway. And they're always in communication. So I want you guys to think of Despicable Me, Gru and the Minions. So Gru is in charge. Gru is the central nervous system, right? He's the brains. He's the one that's telling the Minions what to do. And the Minions are the peripheral nervous system. They're the ones going out and doing whatever the boss Gru said. So I thought that was like kind of a fun reference for the parents or for those that know Despicable Me.
I just keep thinking about the half marathon that you and I both ran that was Minions themed.
That was so fun.
So fun. We went to Dodger games the night before.
You did. I didn't.
Nichole was just hanging out at the hotel. Her now husband thought she was going with a bunch of guys.
Like a bunch of men.
And she's
like, what? No. I'm going to hang out in the hotel by myself.
It's like Nicole's dream night. And I ran that half marathon on like 4 to 5 hours of sleep. And Nichole made fun of me because I brought literally like 10 bags.
5 bags was so dumb.
For one overnight trip. You guys should see me when I travel. It's pretty wild.
I can travel in a backpack and be done with it.
I'm so not that way. Anyways.
Okay. Despicable Me, Gru's the central nervous system. The Minions are the peripheral nervous system. In real life, I want you to think about you're crossing the street and you see a car. The central nervous system is saying there's a car coming, we're in danger. And the peripheral nervous system is what's going to make your body move or run to keep you safe. So it's going to follow the cues from the brain saying something needs to happen. And as I was putting this together, it reminded me of something that I learned in grad school that really has nothing to do with this episode, but it was one of the things that actually really stuck out to me. I don't even remember what class it was. It was some brain class, probably. It had to have been a brain class.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, maybe it was a medication class. I don't remember. But I had a teacher or a professor that taught us about afferent and efferent neurons. Have you ever heard of those?
No.
Sometimes they have posters of them in like chiropractic offices. And I remember I saw that in a chiropractor office once and I mentioned it and I asked him a question about what I'm about to share. And he's like, oh, I don't know. I really don't know. And part of me was like, sir, you're about to crack my neck. I hope you know these things. Like you have these posters up in here. You know, let's know these things. Okay. But anyways, it was just kind of a fun thing that I learned in grad school. So there's the afferent nerves and the efferent nerves. The afferent nerves are found in your peripheral nervous system, specifically things like your skin, your muscles, joints. And they send signals to the central nervous system because remember, the two are always talking. And the function of the afferent nerves is to transmit sensory information from the body. So for example, when you touch a hot stove, the afferent nerves is what's going to tell your brain, oh, this is hot, right? The efferent nerves are located in the central nervous system and in the peripheral nervous system. So it's located in both. And its function is to transmit commands from the central nervous system to the muscles. So for example, you touch the hot stove, what are you going to do probably?
Pull back.
You're probably going to pull back, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's your efferent nerves like carrying the command from your brain saying, hot, you need to move, right? Otherwise, what would happen if you left it there? Like
You
it would
burn yourself.
you'd burn yourself, right? And the example that they gave us in grad school was think about when you're looking in your backpack or your purse or something for something, but you're not visually looking for it, right? You're kind of digging around in it and you're just, oh, this is a pen, this is my lip liner, this is my lipstick. Like you kind of know what things are just by touching them.
Mm-hmm.
So basically your afferent nerves is the one that carries the information from your body to your brain. So the receptors in your skin, like the receptors on your fingers, are detecting the texture, the shape, the size. That's what's like basically telling you, oh, this is the lipstick, this is the cell phone, this is whatever. And the efferent nerves carries the signals from the brain, which is like telling you, okay, now you need to put your hand in the purse to look for it. So one is commanding you to do it, and the other one is like just letting you know, like, yeah, I'm on the right track, even though I can't really see it. So that was like something fun that I remembered from school. All right, back to the nervous system. So there are two parts to the peripheral nervous system. So remember, we have the central nervous system, and then we have the peripheral nervous system. The peripheral itself is broken into two parts. That's broken into the somatic nervous system, which is what guides your voluntary movement. So I want you to think of that as like your conscious mind and you having conscious control over something. I'm going to jump. I'm going to walk. I'm going to, what else do we do with our body? I don't know, jumping jacks, whatever. It's like telling your body, or it's your conscious movement. So you choosing to do something. The autonomic nervous system is what regulates the activities that we spoke about earlier that you don't even think of. So I want you to think of that as like your subconscious mind and subconscious control. So involuntary movements like resting, sleeping, digesting, heart rate, breathing, things like that, okay? Within your autonomic nervous system, you're going to have two different states. You're going to have your parasympathetic state and you're going to have your sympathetic state. You still with me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Parasympathetic, an easy way to remember, P in parasympathetic equals peace. Sympathetic starts with an S. That equals stress. So usually we're trying to go from a sympathetic state, a stress state, to a parasympathetic state, to a peace state. All right. Still good?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Then you have the vagus nerve, which is a big player in all of this. And it's vagus, V-A-G-U-S, not V-E-G-A-S, the vagus nerve.
Mm-hmm.
And the vagus nerve connects your brain to your heart, to your lungs, to your digestive system. And again, it's kind of just like a communication. It's like a highway, or it's like a freeway. Everything's kind of interconnected. The vagus nerve is what supports the parasympathetic nervous system. So again, the peaceful nervous system, by slowing down your heart rate, deepening your breath, and bringing you like a sense of relaxation. And we hear a lot about the vagus nerve now. Osea has a vagus nerve. What's it called? Vagus nerve, deep relax vagus nerve system or something.
It's really good branding. We are not sponsored by Osea because we probably don't have a large enough following for it. I don't know, but we should. We should be.
All I know is I got it.
Do you
I
love
had
it?
the pillow mist. It came unscrewed and it leaked all over the bag. I had it for one night and I wanted to cry.
I would return that shit. And be
That's
like,
what my
hey.
husband said. He's like, tell them it just came that way.
Yeah.
So I haven't decided, but I
I
was
would.
so sad. Okay. Anyway, vagus nerve, we're hearing more about it. So we'll kind of talk a little bit about it.
Okay.
You can't really talk about the vagus nerve without talking about the polyvagal theory. Are you familiar with
I've
that?
never heard of that. No.
You never heard of the polyvagal theory?
I don't think so. Or maybe I have and I just don't know the name. What is it?
Okay. The polyvagal theory is going to be common when you're talking about things like trauma.
Okay.
So maybe that's why you haven't heard about it too much. But anyway, the polyvagal theory basically explains how the nervous system regulates itself, how it stays safe, and how it kind of stays connected. So there's going to be 3 states within the polyvagal theory. The first one is going to be the ventral vagus state, which is your safe state, your social state. So when you're in that state, you're feeling calm, you're feeling grounded, you're feeling connected to others. Physically, you're going to have like an open posture, you're going to have steady breathing, you're going to be like emotionally regulated. That's going to be one of the 3 states. The second state is going to be your sympathetic state. That's going to be your fight or flight state. So that's when your body's alarm system is going off and saying, okay, we're in danger. And some of the physical sensations in that is going to be your increased heart rate, anxiety, restlessness. That's going to be all associated with that sympathetic state. So remember, that's your stress state.
Mm-hmm.
The third one is going to be your dorsal vagal state. And that's going to be your shutdown or freeze state. So if fight or flight isn't an option or that doesn't work, your body might shut down to protect itself. So physically, somebody might be feeling numb, they're going to feel disconnected, or they're going to feel fatigued. And all the states are adaptive. So you have to kind of understand that like all of those responses are normal survival mechanisms. Because the nervous system's main job is what?
To
keep us safe, keep us alive.
I was going to say, make sure you exist.
Yeah, to make sure we exist, right? To keep us safe.
Yeah.
So sometimes we need to be in fight or flight. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we need to be in shutdown mode. Sometimes we're fine not being in any of those and being in social state. The nervous system is so old. The nervous system is back from when we were cave people, cavemen and women, cave persons. Back then, we were living in caves, we were living among animals. We had to decide, okay, there's a lion coming. Do I run from the lion? Do I freeze? Do I not move? Right? Do I shut down? And that kept us alive. That was like the purpose of it. But now we're living in modern society. We don't have those same threats. We don't have lions walking around down the street that we need to run from. We don't have any of that going on. So sometimes it kind of glitches. And this is what happens also with anxiety, why sometimes people have anxiety, I teach this with my kids that have anxiety, or my students, my teens, that it's just sometimes like a malfunction, like a glitch in the nervous system saying, oh my gosh, like this something bad is really happening, right? Like when you really just have to take a test or you have to do a presentation, but your body doesn't recognize the difference between this is safe and, oh my gosh, I need to run for my life. Because sometimes it just hasn't like adapted to living in modern society back from cave people days. Now, what are you thinking?
I was thinking about myself in high school when I had anxiety, but I think I was then picking up on people's energy and didn't have the language for it. But that's really interesting to hear that perspective.
Yeah, and then now it's been expanded. It's not just fight, flight, or freeze. Now there's fawn.
Fawn.
What's the other one? Fight, flight, freeze.
Fawn is somewhere in between, right?
Fawn.
Fawn
You can
like
think
fear.
you can think of fawn as like in an extreme case, someone being kidnapped and they're going to kind of like people please and do all they can to survive that situation.
Mhm.
So they're going to maybe, ask questions and just like kind of doing whatever they can, like being maybe more submissive in the moment to be able to survive like that situation. Because what happens if you're kidnapped and you're fighting? Well, they're going to get real sick of you real quick, and God knows what they're going to do to you, right? They're probably not just going to drop you off and say you're too much of a hassle. So fawn is, okay, how do I survive this situation? Like, what can I do to make this person trust me or like me? Things like that.
I just keep thinking about two characters that I hope you cover in your content, one of which is Dexter and the other is Luigi.
I don't know much about him. Well, Luigi's a real person, though.
Well, it's fine. But
I'm
also,
cover
like,
real people.
Imagine being kidnapped by him. I'm sure that's most every woman.
I'm sure many women would love that. They're like, why does everybody love Luigi? And it's because, well, he made a very detailed plan.
Mm-hmm.
And he followed through with the plan, right? So men, the bar is not that high. Make a plan and execute the plan. It's not hard.
That's what he did.
Yep. That's it. He made a plan. He made details. And he's like, all right, done. I'm going to do it. Back to the nervous system. So all of this connects back to your subconscious mind and your limiting beliefs. This is, I think, why I was so into the idea of talking about this, because as you guys all know, that's my jam now, subconscious mind, limiting beliefs. And really, I mean, I guess it's kind of been my thing for the last
20 years, Nichole.
Right.
Forever.
Yeah. It just,
Forever.
I'm trying to think back, like, when was I in grad school and all that? It's just named differently, but I think I like the way this is named and this approach a little bit better than.
I told her this in a reading in 2023. Here we are in 2025.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to think about, I'm going to use this analogy that I also learned in my certification, but I had to expand on it a little bit more. We're going to think of going to the sand or going to the beach, and you have the sand, and I want you to think about what happens if you put your hand in the sand.
You make an imprint there.
There's going to be an imprint in the sand.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I want you to think about that when we talk about limiting beliefs and like nervous system. So your handprint in the sand is the limiting beliefs is going to be like the handprint. Sorry, the limiting beliefs is going to be the hand going into the sand. The print that's left is going to be like your nervous system. So what happens if you keep like pushing your hand? Like, it's going to be harder to.
It's deepened.
It's deepened, right? It gets like deeper and deeper.
Mm-hmm.
When you're young and you have different experiences, so maybe emotional experiences or stressful ones, they're going to leave a mark in your subconscious mind, similar to that first press into the sand, the first press that your hand makes into the sand.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody might have said something like, oh, you're so dumb. Or if we're talking about money, maybe you heard a lot of negative talk around money. Rich people are greedy. Rich people are evil. What do we hear a lot? Money is the root of all evil, right? So if you're hearing things like that, that's going to also be what contributes. So every time something similar happens, it's going to be like pushing your hand into the sand again, right? So your belief is going to get reinforced. The handprint's going to get more like solidified. And you're going to constantly be looking for situations to prove that that's right. So if somebody says to you, you're not good enough, and you're in that age where, you know, you're so impressionable, you're like a sponge, things are going to happen and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm not good enough. You're going to take these experiences and you're going to believe them to be true.
But you're looking for said affirmations on an unconscious level, right?
Right. Yeah. You're just because what happens is someone says it to you and you start to believe it.
Yeah.
So once you've believed it, you're going to look for other supporting evidence to say, yep, see, I'm right. I'm wrong, or I'm not good enough. I'm dumb. I'm all these things. So limiting beliefs are going to be hard to get rid of because they are tied to your nervous system. Your nervous system, your body remembers what's happening. The body keeps a score, right? Everybody's heard of that book.
Have you read it?
I haven't, but
I want to. I heard it's very deep. So that's why I'm like, we're not there yet.
Yeah, it's very brainy. It's very dense. I think that's something you need to take your time with. Okay. So the sand is going to be your nervous system. It's going to react to stressors. It's going to react to situations and how many times somebody's pressed it. If you've experienced repeated stress or any kind of trauma, your nervous system is going to kind of be on high alert all the time. It's always going to be scanning for any kind of similar threats or just anything that maybe feels like a similar threat. It doesn't have to be the same threat, but it's just that feeling that comes up when you think about it. That's going to make you dysregulated. That's going to also like reinforce patterns of fear, patterns of avoidance, being hypervigilant, always scanning for something. And that's going to make it hard to relax. It's going to make it hard to trust. And then, so that's going to kind of be your like sympathetic state, right? Your stress state. We want to go into a parasympathetic state. We want to go into a peaceful state. So that's where you're doing the different work. Okay, now we need to heal the nervous system. Now we need to work on clearing these limiting beliefs so that way I don't get stressed and triggered and activated when my partner doesn't text me back in 5 minutes, for example. That could maybe be like one of the things that you start to notice. So how do you do that? Well, you have to make like new handprints, right? And one of the ways you can do that is the nervous system regulation. So things like breath work, mindfulness, vagus nerve stimulation. We're going to talk about some of these things in a little bit. That's going to kind of be like the water's coming over the handprint and it's kind of smoothing it out a little bit. And there's no more hand making a print into the sand. It's just kind of like, okay, it's getting softer. It's getting softer. Eventually it might disappear, right? Depending on how many times the water has gone over it.
I was thinking about what your metaphor was going to be for that, because I think that's where the tests lie. It's like, okay, how long and how much is it going to take and what's your approach going to be before it can soften and potentially fully be gone, if ever.
Now, once the tide has kind of done that and it's made the sand a little bit softer, you can add new handprints into the sand. So if you think you're not good enough, you can say, well, I actually want to have a more empowering thought that I am good enough. Or I want to have an empowering thought that I am intelligent enough. Or I want to have an empowering thought that I'm lovable. If I had a thought that maybe I was unlovable. So now you're going to start reinforcing that new thought through reinforcement techniques. We've talked before about affirmations, and affirmations are good, helpful techniques because we learn through repetition. We make new neural pathways. When we repeat something over and over, that's where positive affirmations come in handy. However, you have to repeat them kind of like over and over and over for a long period of time. Sometimes people want more of a quick fix and they don't want to have to repeat the affirmations for months at a time. But that's basically making a new handprint with these empowering beliefs. And as I was doing this, a lot of this really reminds me of work that we do with EMDR, because in EMDR, we're going back to the traumatic event, but we're always starting with, how do you feel? So it's kind of going back to, what are you feeling in your body? Where are you feeling it in your body? And when was a time that you felt this before? And so a lot of times when we're doing work, the memory so the way that they're feeling in their body when they have to drive is something that was present when they were a child, that has nothing to do with being in a car, that has nothing to do with driving, but it might be some kind of event that happened when they were 6 or 7 years old, and their body felt that way, even though it didn't have anything to do with the current situation that they're experiencing. So it's all the nervous system just kind of remembering, oh, yep, we felt this way before and we didn't like it. With the MDR, what you're doing is you're getting your logical and your emotional mind on board at the same time, so that way you can make more sense of it. So that way it's not your emotional brain taking over, because logically, it's not happening anymore. So if we think about the subconscious mind doesn't understand this happened before. It thinks everything is happening at all times in that moment. So think about PTSD. Think about when we have veterans that are coming back from war and it's 4th of July and they're hearing all the fireworks. But to them, they know that it's fireworks. It's 4th of July, there's going to be fireworks. But their body is remembering what was happening when they were in a war zone, when they were in a combat. That's because the mind doesn't know, well, that was a long time ago. That was in another country. I'm not there anymore. I'm just at a 4th of July celebration with my family. So that's the hard part, is it can't differentiate between past and present or future, which is also why visualization is a good technique to help you with manifesting and calling things in, because your brain doesn't know that you're visualizing something that hasn't happened yet. It thinks that it's happening now. So what's going to occur is that your brain is going to go out and look for things to make that true. Your reticular activating system is going to follow all of those things that are incongruent with what you're visualizing.
I had a girlfriend recently text me, and she was telling me about how she ended things with someone that had been in her life for a very long time, and how she would go and have a conversation or drive by a place that brought up a specific memory, and she would be reminded of said person. And I was like, it's because you're still calling that person's energy in some way.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a little bit different than the RAS, because the RAS is more based.
I mean, isn't there a similarity there? Because your brain's kind of creating that energy and that reality.
So what kind of car do you want to get?
I want a pickup truck or an SUV. Okay.
So for example, if you're thinking of, for a while, I was really wanting to get a Tesla, and I was noticing more Teslas. And then I was like, oh, I really want a blue one. And then I would see more blue Teslas. It's not that there were more blue Teslas on the road. It's just that I was noticing them more. Now we're looking at other cars. I'm most likely going to start seeing those other cars on the road.
The red car theory.
Yeah, it's not because they're there. It's just, It's not because there's more of them. It's because that's what I've deemed important. So that's what I'm going to look out for now. All right. So anyway, this is all super important to know while you're healing and while you're on a healing journey, because your nervous system needs to be able to feel like it's safe in order for you to let go of old patterns and to process your trauma, so that way you can make changes that are actually going to be sustained and not just make the change for a week or two, right? You want to be able to, okay, I've made these changes to call in a partner, but now I need to make the changes so that I can keep the partner and not create chaos when there doesn't need to be chaos. I had a client once, I think I mentioned this before, who grew up pretty traumatically, had a past partner who was boring because there was no trauma, there was no drama, there was no Like none of that. It was just very stable. They deemed it as boring. So anyway, they got a new partner and it was so much chaos, so dramatic. And they hated it though. They hated how chaotic it was. They hated how dramatic it was. And when I kind of talked to them and like introduced this idea of your body's just remembering like what you were used to, what you were raised in, they almost cried because the realization was, oh my gosh, I'm creating this, like I'm doing this, even though I don't want to do it. Consciously, they didn't want that. Consciously, they wanted a healthy, stable relationship. But subconsciously, that didn't feel safe to them. That felt like a threat to them. Because when they had that stable, healthy relationship, it was boring. And then they ended the relationship. So that's why it's really important to kind of understand and to heal this, because you might be wanting something consciously, but subconsciously your mind's like, nope, we're not doing that because that's a threat to us. We're not familiar with that and we're not going to go there. So kind of back to the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is going to help you get out of fight or flight and get into rest and digest. Your vagus system, when it's regulated, is going to help you with your physical health. It's going to help you just be more resilient in general. It's going to help you be able to connect to other people. And trauma is what's going to keep the nervous system stuck in the sympathetic, in the stress state, or in that dorsal vagal state, which was the shutdown and freeze state. The goal is to get your nervous system the goal is to get your nervous system safe so that it can return to the ventral vagal state, which was your safe and social state.
I had a dark thought that you can cut out if it doesn't make the cut. Is it the same idea of like when a woman is in the process or about to be raped where they just freeze and they don't react?
Maybe, right? Because so they're all going to be part of our survival. So maybe in that situation, they think, okay, you know what? Right now, I need to freeze because if I fight, like, if there's weapons being used, if I fight, this might be really bad for me. It might be better for me if I just let it happen so that I can make it out of this alive. So it's always going to depend on that too. And then every person is going to usually kind of gravitate more towards one or the other. So you might have somebody that always goes into fight mode and a client that always went into fight mode for everything. And that caused a lot of problems. Mm-hmm. And then you might have someone who goes into freeze mode where that's not good either because you still have to get stuff done. So they might also be more like predisposition to one response or another. But think about, I was listening to a podcast recently about Columbine, and one of the students that survived Columbine was actually, I think, got hit, but it wasn't a lethal hit. But what they did was they pretended like they had died.
They died.
And that's what kept them alive because there was no need for them to try again because, I'm going to play dead right now because that's what's going to keep me alive, right? So everybody's going to have something different. And I always think about, would my brain react that quickly and would my brain know to do that? And I don't think my brain would. I think I would go straight to like fighting. And that probably would, I don't know if that would work.
You were a sophomore when that happened, right? I remember that. That was like the first set 99? Of like shooting being a thing and it being publicized the way it was in the media in the States.
Mm-hmm. All right. Some tools for regulating your nervous system.
Yay.
I've said it before. I'm going to say it again. I fucking love breath work. Breath work is so amazing. Everybody should be doing it. At least 5 minutes a day, I think would be super beneficial for a lot of people. When you're doing deep belly breathing, like you're doing in breath work, that's going to stimulate the vagus nerve, which is going to tell your body that it's okay to rest. It's okay to relax. Different breathing techniques you can try. You can try the box breath, which is inhaling for 4, holding for 4, exhaling for 4, and then holding at the bottom for 4 again. So just like a box, you're keeping the same numbers. In, hold, out, hold. In, hold, out, hold. That's one you can do. There's the 4-7-8 method, which is in for 4, hold for 7, and out for 8. One thing you can do, especially when you're breathing out, is you want to breathe out as if you're blowing through a straw. So kind of like pursing your lips and like, that's going to be one of the better ways. And that's actually going to help you extend your breath a little bit longer. Because sometimes, right, so 4-7-8, you need to breathe out for 8 seconds. If you're just going, you might not be able to hold it for that long as you would if you were pursing and like blowing through a straw. That's one of the methods that they do a lot in the breathwork videos that I follow specifically. There's also the physiological sigh, which was kind of made a little bit popular recently by Dr. Huberman, his like bro science. So have you heard of the physiological sigh?
No, but I've heard of Huberman, and he hasn't had the best media attention lately.
Oh, that Huberman. Yeah, and then he just, all the bros. It's like bro science now.
The bros love him.
Bro science. Yeah. The physiological sigh is taking a deep breath in, taking in another breath at the top, and then exhaling. So it's going to be like, so it's deep breath, one more extra sip, and then out.
That's the one I do.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't need to be done too often or like too many repetitions. You can, get away with doing, I think he said 3 or 4 sometimes is enough to help like get you back to where you need to be. So those are going to be some of the breathwork activities and vagal activation activities. And then you have grounding techniques, and that can be grounding like going out and standing barefoot in the grass, standing barefoot in the sand, right? So actual like literal grounding to the earth. There's also going to be the 5-4-3-2-1 technique, which we do a lot in therapy, especially with people that are having anxiety. Have you done that one before?
I haven't.
You haven't?
I don't think so.
So the 5-4-3-2-1 technique is basically activating all of your senses. So you're going to spot 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. So the idea is to get you out of your head and more aware of your surroundings, because usually your surroundings are going to be safe. It's what's going on in your head that is helping you or that is making you feel unsafe. So I'm not unsafe. I'm actually just in a restaurant and there's people here. I had almost a panic attack years ago. I took my son to breakfast. It was just me and him. And I started feeling like I was having a panic attack. I did the 5-4-3-2-1 in the restaurant. And yeah, it took me out of it and I was fine. It's like I'm literally just in a restaurant with my son. There's like nothing to panic about here. So that's another really good one that you can do if you're feeling anxious or like on the verge of a panic attack. Now, you can also do vocal exercises to stimulate the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve can be stimulated by humming or singing or even gargling. That can help you stimulate the vagus nerve. So you can sing your favorite song if nobody's around. Or if you're a great singer and you want to sing in front of other people, you can do that too. You can also surround yourself with people that are comforting, with people that are grounding, with people that are supportive. You can have a cozy space in your home, like a dedicated meditation space or just a dedicated place in your home that you feel very safe. For like a lot of people, that's going to probably be their bed or their bedroom. But it doesn't have to be that. It can be any other place in your home where you feel safe. Another thing you can do is movement. So gentle yoga, stretching, rocking and swaying. So I started doing a somatic exercise program back in November. I actually really, really enjoy it. And one of the things that she talks about is how rocking is one of the best ways to regulate your nervous system. And so that can be something else. And if you think about it, a lot of kids or even adults that are on the spectrum, they do a lot of rocking and swaying. So what's happening is they're probably just regulating their nervous system in the moment. We do it too. We just do it in a different way, right? We might shake our feet. Some people like shake their foot. It's the same thing that someone with autism is doing. We just do it in a different way and in a way that is like more socially acceptable, right? Where it's more socially acceptable to shake your leg than it is to rock back and forth, which is dumb, but I don't make the rules. All right. And then meditation.
Nichole's favorite.
My favorite, my least favorite. And again, spending time with people who feel safe to you. Co-regulation is really helpful. Think about, for the parents here, how do your kids usually regulate, right? They come to you and they require you to help them regulate. And I know for me, when I'm laying down with my son, I like instantly feel more relaxed and more regulated. So co-regulation is another really good, helpful thing. Some people use their partners. I use my son. I sometimes use my partner, but I use my son just because he fits so like perfectly in my arms.
Mm-hmm.
But that's another option. What are you going to say?
I was going to say codependent. Nichole used to say codependent about me and Dad, but now I'm like, oh, look who's talking now.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he's a child. So it's different.
We were talking. Dad was like, we were on the phone the other night, and he's like, don't worry, Gab. When your son gets older, when her son gets older, she won't be far. And I was like, yeah, probably not.
No, I'm going to follow him.
Exactly.
We're going to move to Spain, and in Spain, it's just socially acceptable to stay with your family, and we're just going to love it. All right. Now, you've learned all of this. What do you do now? Well, now you have to figure out, where am I at in my body in this moment? So I want you to get really familiar with understanding your body cues, what might be going on. Am I feeling safe in this moment? Am I feeling anxious? Or am I feeling like I need to shut down? Like, what's happening in this moment? And if you're feeling anxious and you know there's no reason for you to be feeling anxious, you're just at work and nothing's happening, then what do you do? Okay, well, I need to get from a sympathetic state to a parasympathetic state. So maybe I'm going to do a little bit of breath work. Maybe I'm going to do some humming. Maybe I'm going to do 5 minutes of meditation. But really understanding, where am I? Am I good right now? Am I chill? All right, cool. Nothing needs to be done. Or if I'm in these other states, what can I do to bring me back to the peace state?
I have a question. When you wake up, do you know if you're in either the sympathetic or parasympathetic, or does it vary?
It varies. I would say most people upon waking up are probably in a parasympathetic state because they've been sleeping. However, if they're woken up by a disturbing dream and it's like one of those kind of wake ups, you're most likely going to be in a sympathetic state. You're going to be stressed and you're not going to know why. Sometimes people just wake up feeling that way, but also that could be depending on what did they do the night before. Did they consume alcohol? We know that anxiety is a thing where you're more anxious the day after you drink for some reason for some people. So I would say typically people are probably waking up in a parasympathetic state. But as the day goes on, there's things that happen to put you into a stress state. Oh gosh, we got to leave now. I got to get you to school. I got to get to work. I got to see my kids. I got to do this. I got to do that. Oh my gosh, we have to clean. We have to make dinner. There's always so many things to help put you into that state, or to that gets you to that state. But you can always get out of it. And if there's no reason for you to feel that way in that moment, and you realize I'm feeling really anxious for no reason. That happens to me a lot, where I'll just feel anxious for no reason. I'll pop on a video, like a 5 to 10 minute breathwork video, and I'll go through that, and then I feel fine after. And I can go about my day. It's not that I wouldn't go about my day if I hadn't done that, but I would still keep feeling the anxiety for no reason. I'd rather not feel it.
Got it. That makes sense.
And do it daily. That's all. Sometimes it's really hard. Sometimes we get so busy and we think, I don't have 10 minutes to do meditation right now. I don't have 10 minutes to do breathing. I don't have 10 minutes for somatic movement. Yes, you do. We all do. I try to tell myself that excuse all the time too. I don't have time, and I have the time. One of the things you can do is, instead of scrolling for 10 minutes, because that's what we all do.
Get off your phone.
Yeah.
Your phone makes you more anxious.
And not saying don't scroll, but maybe instead of picking up your phone and scrolling for 15 minutes while you're on your break at work, maybe you breathe or meditate for 10 minutes and then you scroll after for 5 minutes.
I mean, I definitely notice, and I'm glad you brought the phone up because I was going to say that as well. I do feel like the more time I spend on my phone, or if it's the first thing that I do in the morning, if that's how I'm starting my day is checking my phone, I'm more anxious.
Don't do that either.
No, you're not supposed to.
Don't. I would say at minimum, don't check your phone for at least 30 minutes to an hour. When I get up, I don't check my phone. I get on my phone to put on my visualizations or to put on my breath work or my meditation. But I'm not checking Instagram. I'm not checking any of my text messages. I'm not checking my emails. Even though I'm on my phone, I'm literally just going to the apps to what it is that I need to do. And I don't check any of that stuff until later.
Mm-hmm.
So try to avoid that. Try to avoid being on your phone an hour, 30 minutes to an hour before bedtime. Turn your phone onto that night vision.
Oh, I have that.
I turn it on at 6:30. It automatically goes on at 6:30 every day. It's on from, I think, 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. to 8 a.m. every day.
It turns red, right?
Like brown, yeah.
Oh, mine's red.
Mm-hmm. Brown. Mm-hmm. It just takes away the blue light, so your brain isn't stimulated. Anyway, that's all I got.
Oh, I loved it. This was so insightful.
Yeah, there's so many. It was like being back in grad school. I was like, I know I've learned this before, but it didn't matter to me. I didn't retain any of that.
What? At the time, right? Mm-hmm. What's your routine with this right now? Maybe it might be helpful for some listeners.
On a good day, my routine is I wake up at 5:30 in the morning. I do visualization for about 10 to 15 minutes. I go into a breath work for another 10 to 15 minutes. And then I maybe do the somatic movement in the evening. Mm-hmm. And then depending on how much time I have, I might do my meditation first thing in the morning, or I'll do my meditation when I get to work before I start seeing students, just to kind of have that quiet time. Mm-hmm. Depending on how anxious I'm feeling that day, I might also do another 10-minute breathwork video to bring me down a little bit if I'm feeling a little overstimulated. And those are kind of the main ones. Yeah.
That's good. It takes a lot of repetition. That's what I was getting at. Mm-hmm. I was going to pull from one deck, but I decided to pull from another because I felt like the messages might be a little bit more supportive. So I'm pulling from, again, the Lightseers Tarot. It's really pretty. It's like easy to digest and understand. Okay. 5 of Wands. It's very busy. What does that mean? We're going to open up the deck and...
Did you like that reel I sent you earlier? The tarot reader?
No, I have not looked.
Oh my gosh, you have to watch it. It's hilarious.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. So this card is talking about I support others and they support me and we rise together in accelerated harmony. That's the mantra. And it is speaking to how, and actually I really don't even know if this applies or not to the whole topic of what we've usually, or what we talked about in the podcast episode, because usually sometimes the messages tend to hit. So I'm just going to trust that this message is meant for anyone, no matter the time, date, or place of them listening to this, for them to, receive this message. But it was upright and it's talking about competition, conflict, ambition, challenge, being pushed by others to excel, brainstorming, mental jousting, adrenaline and aggression, surpassing limits, dynamic energy, and leveling up in general. And it's talking about how little rivalry can be a good thing. It can push us to become the very best version of ourselves and to move quicker than we would if we were alone. Allow opposition and challenge to help you to evolve your methods and push beyond self-imposed limitations. If competition becomes unhealthy and you are experiencing the shadow side of conflict or ambition, it's time to take a step back and retreat from the the energies that are hindering your progress. Sometimes the need to be right or personal feelings around being questioned or challenge can interfere with the ability to see your path clearly. So you may need to fly solo for a bit in order to reevaluate your options. Choose to excel. Look for healthy competition or collaboration that inspires and motivates you, and learn from others and use competing energies as a way to enrich your experience.
I felt like the first part of that did. It was just kind of talking about whatever it was talking about. I felt like the first part did. I don't know about the second.
Like limitations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so your nervous system can sometimes limit you because it's a little bit stuck. So how do you move past that? Well, you have to do all the things.
All the things you just mentioned, and also probably should start with a sense of self-awareness. But if you're listening to this podcast, you have that. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be here. And we appreciate you for that.
All right. That's all I got.
Till next time.
Bye.